He's more important than God.
That's right. You just put someone, or someone's feelings above God. So I'm making that statement to say that it's very interesting here that he's actually laying out, it does not matter. It does not matter if it's a stranger. It doesn't matter if it's the dog brings in a piece of bread that was outside. He's cut off. Okay? That's what I'm saying though. It's cut off. It's everything bad. Yes, sir.
Jay, meat offered to other idols? Yeah. Don't bring it in.
Don't bring it in.
What happens when you partake of leaven? It leavens the whole lump.
Right.
In other words, if you don't understand that this is very significant in your life, do not let sin come in.
All right, I'm going to tell a story on myself. And someone in the room that I'm not going to mention, he knows who it is. We were going through unleavened bread, and it was our very first year to do it. And we had kind of a stressful day, and so we decided, you know what, we're going to go have beer. Beer's made with yeast, guys. You can't have beer during unleavened bread. So it was one of those things that we actually had a couple of drinks into the beer and went, oh wait, this has got yeast in it. And I was like, oh crap.
Early, you're not laughing.
So anyway, I'm just saying though that this is one of those instances. He's laying out very, very strict rules that it has to encompass everything about your life. Yes, ma'am.
I have a big question because it's bothered me.
Uh-huh.
Like during Christmas, Easter, they have celebrations, food, and I'm talking, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but when they have a celebration to these pagan holidays,
Uh-huh.
and isn't when we go there partaking some of this food that they are in that day to their believe their God?
Okay, I'm not going to touch that too much. I will throw out an opinion of mine. I'll throw in an opinion. And the opinion kind of goes like this. My wife and I do not celebrate Christmas. Yes, sir.
I generally don't eat Easter ham.
That was a good one.
But my wife and I we don't celebrate Christmas. We don't celebrate, Easter and all those kind of things. Our family gets together on those times of year. Okay? And I don't know about the rest of you, but I think family is important. We actually just had a couple of major patriarchal deaths in our family this year. And so it was one of those kind of things where we were getting guilted the whole time about, well, you've got to come down, you've got to come down, you've got to come down, you've got to come down. And you know what we actually did is we stayed home. That's my opinion. That's what we did. I'm not telling you that's for anybody else. But I'm telling you that's for us because it's not the fact that I'm not worried about Randy Kay and I being swayed one way or the other.
Your children.
That's right. And it is more important to me that my children understand that we're not going to partake in that. Now, having said that, during the Christmas holiday, as long as there's not a tree in the house, we go over. We'll go see them. We'll go have fellowship with them, but we're not going to partake in presents. We're not going to partake in anything that's remotely like that because that's not something we believe in. But we want to lay that out now, even though Kaya has no clue what the holidays are. She has no idea. She didn't, and even Christopher, who is 5, Santa Claus, he's just kind of like, this Christmas thing's weird. That's his opinion. He's like, this is just weird because he's bombarded with it every time we leave the house, which you almost don't want to leave the house anymore. But he's bombarded with it. But he has no context of that's something fun. That's something that we do, because he actually he had a friend ask him, well, what do y'all get for Christmas? And Christopher said, we don't do Christmas. We do Sukkot. I'm a 5-year-old. I was pretty proud of him. Okay?
He the man.
But at the same time, we're teaching them it's like we do things God tells us to do. We don't do things that we just want to do.
Exactly.
So
I tell my grandchildren the same thing. How come you don't celebrate Christmas, Grandma? And I tell them, why? I used to, but I don't no more.
And you know, and it's as simple as saying, I've decided for myself, this isn't something that's good. Yes, sir.
In 12:27, it says that they shall say, or you shall say, it is the sacrifice of Yahweh's Passover, who passed over the house of the children of Israel in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our house. And the people bowed their heads and worshipped. So the context of worship there is that they were in agreement. They accepted it, and so it seems that if you bring in a Christmas tree, therefore you're in agreement, you're accepting it. That is worship of the tree. And of course, you know, the church keeps saying, I'm not worshiping the tree. But the fact of bringing it in their house is their worship of it.
You know, it's gone as far as a lot of people don't. This is what I'm finding. A lot of people don't even think that Christ was born on December 25th.
It wasn't, but yeah.
I know he wasn't. Glad you and I believe that, Shirley. But what I'm saying is that a lot of people don't even believe that. They just kind of go, oh, but that's when we celebrate.
Time off.
And it's like, huh, well, that's very interesting, considering that was the same time that the witches would go out and celebrate the solstice. And that's the same time that the pagans would go out and sacrifice their kids. And that's the same time that it on and 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 on. Why do we pick a day surrounded with all this other death and everything else of the world when there's a day that God laid out that I haven't found any significance with any other timeline? Does that make sense?
The devil did it long time ago.
Well, sure, but that's what I'm saying is that we keep trying to tell them that, well, this is pagan, this is wrong, this is this and this and that. It's like, just ask them the question and say, why do you associate your holiday with a pagan time of year when God lays out in His timeline that there isn't a pagan time of year with this? Does that make sense? I mean, it's just a different way of asking the question. Because I used to go, that's wrong! And that got me nowhere. Because it does. Everyone here has been through that. And you get slapped in the face and it hurts.
Now there's Google for you.
I think it does also come down to, it's a practical solution. Just the same way that Caesar said, well, let's take this census around Sukkot, because I know they're all going to be in Jerusalem. I don't have to gather them. We don't have to run all over the place to count everybody. We already know that they come here at this time of the year, so let's order this census to be taken of them when it's real easy for us to do. Let's do it at this time of year. He knew that he could find them all in one place. Yeah, well, are they supposed to be in their hometowns? Are they supposed to come up?
It's supposed to be in hometowns.
Well,
For the
okay.
census,
Well, that's why he went back to Bethlehem instead of going to Jerusalem.
Yep.
I mean, well, but my similar in the same sense. Okay, whether it's not Jerusalem, but knowing where they're going to be, I think where the idea looked good, if you will, was simply, hey, we know when they're all going to get together to be celebrating something. Here's when we can get to them and influence them.
Okay.
You know, here's where we can bring God to them mindset versus, no. Let's celebrate God and they will see it and come to us, come to Him. Just this different marketing kind of a mindset that says, well, don't put up the sign out in the middle of the desert, put it along the highway where everybody's going,
I'm going to throw this out, as you came up with that. But
Okay.
It's funny that all the marketing in the world around the holidays, around the pagan holidays, okay, they have, every bit of them have this air of goodness. Every one of them.
Air, what?
Of goodness.
Oh.
An era of,
Giving.
you've got to be responsible. You're responsible if you take part in this. You know, that's part of that lie.
It's Christmas for
Good.
talk to them, it's
Sure.
Christmas.
But it's anyway. So I'm just you know, I'm not gonna. I think we
The
hit
one other
that
thing I
one
want
on
to
the
comment
head.
on what we were talking about with the tree, it really goes back to like what Mark pointed out today, that reference to Cain. Sin, if you sin, boom, sin is at the door. And that's supposed to be that barrier. Like you said, when you bring it in the house, now you've acquiesced and you're like, come on in.
Right.
You know, you've let it cross the threshold, you've brought it in. There's a difference between it being out there and going, yeah, I recognize that tree and all that, you know, it's like, because yeah, there's nothing wrong, inherently wrong with an evergreen. In and of itself, it's one of God's creations. It's not, it's the worship of it, the bringing, cutting it down and, you know, putting it things, that's where it changes. There's,
Okay.
Adorning it and.
Adorning it,
adorning
right.
and
Yes, sir.
Bowing down.
I want to get back to, let's see where Yeshua is in this portion, but to kind of put this, because this is a frustrating time of year we just came through. I just want to bring back perspective in John, chapter 6, verse 43 or 44, Yeshua tells us this. He says, "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up in the last day." If we're sitting here beating our head because our family can't see that these are pagan,
Right. God has to show.
God
Yeah.
has control.
Yeah.
So we need to sit and chill, walk in the light as the Father shows us, and stop sitting there beating our head, chasing rabbits, thinking, what can I do? How smart can I be? How can I convince? He tells us to walk it, to live it. Let the Spirit who draws reveal it.
Well, I'll agree, but I'm also going back to your statement. Walking it and living it that's part of the hardest part.
And by you and your family
Right.
abstaining,
Right.
that's fine, but you don't sit there and beat it over their head like a torch.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying is that when these questions come out, and that's why I think that it's important, especially right now, for this group, you know, I think it's important that we actually do come to that and say, okay, well, what do you do? I mean, I think that's important. I really do. I've talked to Phil and Deanna about it, how they deal with their family about it, because I totally believe you. And I'm with you on that same
And
page.
there's nothing
It's
wrong
not
with
to
telling
us.
We are to stand up for our beliefs.
Right, but it's not for us to show them the truth. Absolutely, I totally agree with that. But I do think that it's important is that us walking it out and doing it in that way of love, the only way that happens is actually going through the hard stuff up, you know, and seeing what other people have done. You know, because I've talked with Phil and Deanna about how they do it with their kids and with their family. You know, because it's different for everybody, but at the same time, that's why we have a collective group. I think that's why it's important that we all stand here and go over the portion. Why? Because we all have a different set of beliefs. We all have a different set of the way we grew up. A different set of goggles that we're looking through when we look at these portions.
And the only thing that we really can do is to pray for our family.
Yes.
Well, we have to set
Okay.
examples of it.
Yeah.
Well, instead of example, but to pray.
Sure.
I was born in 1941, and it was a member of the Church of Christ in Family Village, and in this house. And some of you that are newer are talking about the 1920s. Very few people even kept Christmas like we do today.
Oh, sure.
And,
It's just a fact.
there was a very long list of Baptists, and they keep it. I told them, I said, I can't keep it, she was so right.
All right.
But she kept on, my mother made us socks and shirts and stuff like that for Christmas. She just couldn't see not doing something because everybody else was.
Oh, I
That's
understand.
my mother. She's 100 and something now, you know.
Well, you know, the funny part about that is my family
13.
did not view this as a Christian holiday until Randy Kay and I had a difference of opinion. The very first time the Bible was brought out at Christmas, was the very first year we said, I don't think we're going to celebrate this with you guys once we have kids. We did that in July, and you can't even believe the grief we got for the next 6 months.
I asked my family not to even give me anything.
Sure. Sure. You know, and my parents, it's all, the kids are missing out. No, they're not. Our kids aren't missing out. My kids love Sukkot. They love Passover. If you haven't been to a Passover at the Porterhouse, I'm just saying you're invited one of these next few years if the Lord tarries. The reason is because it's all about the kids. Okay, we go through the plagues, we go through the meal, we go through all of it, and it's just a fun environment so that the kids can actually see what is important and what is fun about it, and because it's God's word, it's truth. There isn't a question of it. They don't question it. Does that make sense? Yet every one of us has to question, well, you know what? This shade of red, it's this time of year. I can't wear this outside. You know, I might be in agreement with someone. I'm just saying that's where we have to start looking at that. And so then when we can go to this, and that's why I want to bring up the last part that I'm going to go over, and that's the fact when we talk about the actual when they took the lamb and they hung it up. Where did they hang it up?
Outside.
Inside.
What is the strongest?
Right in the doorway there?
Right in between the door.
Yeah.
The entrance.
Yeah, so the blood would go gather right there at the...
Because that's where they gathered the blood. It says it was gathered in the basin of the door. Okay? Now, I don't think they had a trough leading from some tree that they did it from all the way down to that. They may have gathered the blood some other way. But you think about a house and the doorpost. The door itself, that mainstay, okay, is one of the strongest parts of the house. That's why you build a header, it's double thick and all that kind of stuff, okay? And so that's where they would hang this lamb, they slit the throat, and the blood would drain down in the basin. Now, there again, looking at one of their houses back then, why would there be a basin right there? Everybody wipes their feet when they come in.
Right, takes their sandals off. Or...
Right, absolutely. Now, there again, you've got this threshold, but it's a basin type threshold, right? Okay. You've got this basin, the blood is drained now into it, the goat is now prepared, but you've got this blood sitting here. Now, this is what I show to the kids every single year, is that you take the hyssop, or the whatever it is, and you dip it in the blood, and you strike the posts, right? And you strike the posts. Now, we've got some pictures of it, and it's very interesting that it's on the sides, and on the head, and on the feet. Because Yeshua did this, right? I mean, anybody disputing that? That's where his blood was, in his hands, on his head, and on his feet. The fact is that when they did that, when they applied the blood to their doorpost, they had to actually go through the blood to enter their house. They had to be covered by the blood to enter their house. Now, could the Passover angel have come in the window? Well, it could have. Absolutely could have. But it doesn't matter once they had the blood applied. Okay? I'm just saying that it wasn't about this physical barrier. It was about this actual spiritual barrier that they let up.
The oath.
Right.
The sign.
The sign. Right. And that sign is that I have passed through blood to enter in safely. And that's my safety. That's my safety. That's my sanctuary. Okay?
And they say too that when the children came out of that house, that was a picture of the rebirth.
Okay.
Rebirth.
I've never heard that. That's interesting. But I thought it was really cool when you look at that picture. Well, you know that Yeshua had blood in his hands, which are the two side posts. He had blood on his head, which is the mantle. And he had blood in his feet, which is the threshold. We actually had to, in that picture, or the children of Israel, do they know Yeshua at this point? No, they don't know him at this point. All they've seen is a picture of him with Moses. They don't know him at this point. They don't get to see his word until where? Sinai, right? So I'm just saying, they don't know him at this point. But what they actually have to do is they have to be saved by the blood. That's what they had to do.
Ty, the only, and I'm not disagreeing with you. The only thing I wonder about, or it brings up for me, especially in looking at their language, and again, without getting carried away with olive tags, there is a significance to them that I think they recognize. That I don't know whether it told them that this is referring to the Mashiach, whether this is returning to something, but it's something different, something unique that was different than just any other object or direct object in a sense, you know? And very specifically, it does speak of olive tavs and an olive tav when it's talking about that blood on that door. It's Yeshua's blood. It's not, and it's the only times that you see blood being talked about that, you know, that are used in that sense. And both of them, you know, in this sense right here, you are going through the blood of Yeshua into your house.
Okay, so then my question is, what is their reference point for who Yeshua is?
But, well, that's
Is that
exactly,
given?
but that is my, you know, but it is given before, because we see this specifically when Jacob anoints a rock, when he puts his head on the rock, that rock is, there's an olive tav right there. It's speaking of who that rock is. And so I'm saying there are references that, yes, did they know that it was going to be the Yeshua, this guy born to Joseph and, you know, Mary? No, they didn't. They don't get that. But they're given a picture of something or someone that is specific and is holy, is separated, and is different from now on. So there's this picture is given to us over and over and over again throughout the test. What they were given. They didn't have the New Testament. So, but throughout what there's a picture. Well, but I'm just saying, yeah, but they do. But in their language, it's written down. You know, they make a discernment that points to Him specifically, and that's why I think it's interesting. But I think it's more than just interesting to look and see where those places are. Yeah, don't worship them like Philip talked about all the time. Don't worship the olive tav as being like, oh, there it is. Oh, there it is again. Don't. But it is a picture, I think, given for a reason. And obviously, when we look at it with our perspective, now, wow, how significant that, yes, that blood that they applied on their doorpost is the blood of Yeshua. And it's only through that door, which He is the door, says, I am, you know, only through me can you get to the Father. Only through His blood do we come into the house, into the bait. Okay? And so it is a beautiful, specific picture. And it is about Him. And I think that's wonderful to see. Because again, like I said, this is the first year I've seen that picture of a specific, I mean, because you're right, Lowe's, this is a great Torah portion, you know? But like most of like all of them, there's layers. And different layers every time. And I think that was really exciting to get that.
I think that we're going to have a little bit of different opinion on this, and that's okay. I'm glad we do.
I still love you.
Yeah, well, that's good. But I think the point I'm trying to bring out with that is that they didn't have to have the acceptance of who that was without, because they had the instruction. Does that make sense?
Well,
Because that's where I'm seeing the difference.
And you're exactly, I think, expressing the beauty of His instructions in that whether you know it's Yeshua and you're just following the instructions, it's the start, if nothing else.
Right.
If you're just before His Son comes.
We know that this was the start for some of them.
Exactly.
We know this was the start
because
for many of the
Egyptians. Sojourners.
We know that many of the Egyptians that did this.
Right.
You know, it actually says that Egyptians partook in that.
Right.
You know, because it's just saying that. But I'm just saying.
But it's that beauty of that picture that it says it can be done it can be started here by just following the instructions.
Sure.
And it can be all the way up to where, ooh, boy, you see
Oh, yeah.
Messiah
Right.
in those instructions, and
Right.
you see more depth to it too. So it's a thing to grow with.
Well, the elders of Israel definitely are seeing these pictures.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They are seeing these pictures.
Yep.
I don't think that everybody was.
No,
That's
I agree with you completely.
whatever. And so it's not neither here nor there that that's the case, though.
Mhm.
That's not the importance. The importance is that they did it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because is it important for us to know the law?
Yes.
It's important for us to do it.
Well, if you don't know it, how you gonna do it?
Exactly.
That's the point.
That's how we separate ourselves
Mhm.
from the law.
Mhm.
So, but my kids, do they know the law? Or is it important that they do it?
They see you. how
Makes
you do it.
sense? I'm saying that there's a layer to all of it. That's why the scriptures are so rich in it, because there's that layer to every piece of it. When you start out, especially as a new to Torah, for instance, okay? When you're new to Torah, you get this mindset of, oh my gosh, there's so much more. There's so much more. There's so much more. There's so much more. I've said this many times. I think it takes more faith to just believe in the New Testament than it does to believe in the whole book. You know, I mean, that's truly how I feel. And so it's interesting that when you're new to Torah, you've got so much of this. There's so much more. There's so much more. There's so much more. And it's interesting that in Acts, they said, we're going to have a problem with all these new people. And they said, what are we going to do?
Well, let's just teach them these things to start. Yeah. Let's
He
narrow
said,
it
let's
down.
start here, and they'll get to here.
Mhm.
It's all about, let's start here.
And all the things they started with were action things,
Absolutely.
not conceptual things.
Absolutely.
They weren't-
Absolutely, yeah. It wasn't about, well, let's give you what's your theory on, it's not that. Yes, sir, Fred.
Well, see, when they, all these people quote Acts, they don't bring up the fact is that after he says this, that you do this, this, and this, and these new people that come in. He says, because they will go to the temple each
Right.
week, and they will learn Moses.
Absolutely. Every Sabbath.
In other words, not that these others, that they weren't required to do the others, it was that they had to do this to start with, and then they would learn the other parts of the law, or as the teachings of God. Because I think that they used the word, they translated it into the law, because it's easy to convince somebody that the law is done away with. But can you teach somebody that the teachings of God are done away with? Would be a little harder story.
A little harder sell?
Yeah.
Marketing.
You can, in marketing, you can teach them that the law is done away with, but the teachings of God would be hard to sell that it is done away with.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I'm so glad y'all got to see me today. So, but,
All right.
let's pray right quick.